The elegant hunters meet the iron wolves, the crystalline spires of the Caltharian flagship. Celestial grace caught the light of distant stars as Admiral Zaeth Kryn studied the holographic display before him. His elongated form, typical of his species, moved with the fluid grace that had made the Calthari the most feared empire in 3 galactic sectors. Their ships were works of art, their battles were performances, and their victories were inevitable. Another primitive species discovered, Admiral, reported his tactical officer, Vesic Thorn. The younger Calthari's bioluminescent markings flickered with excitement along his neck. They call themselves humans. Intelligence suggests they have barely mastered faster-than-light travel. Zaeth's 4 eyes focused on the data streaming across the display. The images showed crude metal constructs that the humans apparently considered warships. They looked like flying scrapyards held together with rivets and hope. No artistic merit, no flowing lines, no elegant curves that spoke to the soul. Just ugly, functional boxes bristling with primitive weapons. How disappointing, Zaeth mused, his voice carrying the musical quality that made Caltharian speech sound like poetry. I had hoped for something more. Challenging. How many worlds do they control? Only 12 systems, Admiral. Their expansion is slow and methodical. They seem to prefer establishing mining operations and research stations, rather than conquering territory for glory. This puzzled Zaeth. Every species the Calthari had encountered understood that conquest was the highest form of art. The way you took a world, the elegance of your strategy, the beauty of your victory, these things mattered. They separated civilized beings from mere animals. Perhaps they simply lack imagination, he concluded. Very well, we shall enlighten them. Prepare the Golden Talon fleet for departure. We will offer them the gift of Caltharian culture. 3 days later, the Golden Talon fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. 15 ships materialized in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls refracting sunlight into spectacular rainbows. Each vessel was unique, crafted by master artisans who had spent decades perfecting every curve and surface. The celestial grace led the formation, its golden hull gleaming like a captured star. Their destination was Jupiter's moon Europa, where human mining operations had been detected. It would be the perfect place to make first contact and demonstrate Caltharian superiority. The humans would see the magnificent fleet, understand their place in the cosmic order, and submit gracefully. It was how these encounters always proceeded. Captain Sarah Chen was having a bad day even before the aliens showed up. The ice harvesting equipment on asteroid station Omega-7 had broken down again. Her coffee maker was on the fritz, and the shipment of spare parts from Earth was 3 weeks late. When her communications officer reported 15 unknown vessels approaching, she simply sighed and reached for her emergency coffee reserves. "This is Captain Chen of the United Human Mining Consortium," she broadcast on standard frequencies. "You're entering a designated work zone. Please state your business or clear the area. We've got quota to meet." The response came on a channel her equipment could barely decode. The voice was melodious, almost hypnotic, but the words made her roll her eyes. "Greetings, primitive beings. I am Admiral Zaeth Kryn of the Caltharian Empire. Your crude civilization now falls under our protection. Surrender your vessels and prepare to be enlightened by superior culture." Sarah looked at her small crew of 12 miners and engineers. Her station was essentially a mobile processing plant attached to a habitat module. Her fleet consisted of 3 mining shuttles and a cargo hauler. She keyed her microphone again. "Look. Admiral Zaeth. I'm just trying to run a mining operation here. If you want to conquer somebody, you need to talk to the Defense Council back on Earth. I don't have authority to surrender anything except maybe my lunch break." There was a long pause. Sarah could see the alien ships on her sensors, and she had to admit they were beautiful. They moved in perfect synchronization, like a school of exotic fish made of light and crystal. Pretty, but she had work to do. "You do not understand the honor we offer," the alien voice continued, sounding confused. "We bring you the gift of civilization. Your crude existence will be elevated under Caltharian guidance." "That's nice," Sarah replied, checking her production schedules. "But I'm union, and my contract specifically says I don't have to deal with alien invasions without overtime pay. You'll need to file the proper paperwork with the Colonial Administration Office." She could almost hear the alien's confusion through the radio static. Sarah had dealt with corporate executives, government, inspectors, and space pirates. Pompous aliens were just another item on her daily to-do list. "Besides," she added, "the Navy boys should be here soon. They're much better at the whole resistance to alien conquest thing than I am. I just dig up ice and process it. Not really invasion material." Admiral Zayeth stared at the communication display in bewilderment. In 300 years of expansion, no species had ever responded to first contact with such casual indifference. The human female had treated his offer of enlightenment like an administrative inconvenience. Sir Vesic reported, "Long range. Sensors are detecting multiple human vessels approaching from the inner system. Energy signatures suggest military ships." "How many?" 27 vessels, Admiral. They appear to be functional rather than aesthetic." Zayeth studied the tactical display as the human fleet emerged from behind Mars. If the mining station had been crude, these new ships were positively barbaric. They looked like flying weapons platforms, all angles and armor plating. No artistic merit whatsoever, just raw, ugly functionality. But there were more of them than expected, and they were moving with surprising coordination. "Open a channel to their lead vessel," Zayeth commanded. "We will follow proper protocol." The face that appeared on his screen belonged to a middle-aged human male with graying hair and tired eyes. His uniform was simple, practical, devoid of the ornamental elements that marked true civilization. This had to be some kind of military commander. "I am Admiral Marcus Stone of the United Humanity Naval Service," the human said without preamble. "You've entered sovereign human space and threatened our citizens. You have one opportunity to withdraw peacefully." Zayeth was astounded by the human's directness. Where was the ritual exchange of credentials, the formal acknowledgement of superior power, the artistic appreciation for Caltharian ship design? "I'm Admiral Zayeth Kryn of the Caltharian Empire," he replied, drawing himself up to his full, impressive height. "We have conquered 47 star systems through the perfection of our military art. Your primitive vessels cannot stand against our elegant might. Observe our formations and despair." The Caltharian fleet began to move, executing the traditional pre-battle dance that had intimidated countless species. The ships flowed through space like living things, their hulls pulsing with coordinated light displays. Beam weapons fired in synchronized patterns, creating geometric shapes of pure energy that painted the void with deadly beauty. It was a masterpiece of military choreography, designed to demonstrate both power and artistic sophistication. Every species that had witnessed it had immediately surrendered. Overwhelmed by the obvious superiority of Caltharian culture, Admiral Stone watched the display without expression. then turned to someone off-screen. "Tactical, what's your assessment?" A woman's voice responded. "They're showing off, sir. Pretty formations, but they're bunched up nice and tight. Perfect target grouping. Weapons status. All batteries loaded and ready, Admiral. Rail guns are charged, missile tubes are hot, and point defense is online." Stone nodded and looked back at the screen. "Admiral Zayeth, that's a nice light show. Very artistic. My compliments to your choreographer." Zayeth felt a flush of pride. Finally, a species that could appreciate Caltharian culture. "However," Stone continued, "you're still in violation of human space. Last chance to withdraw." "You cannot be serious," Zayeth replied. "You have witnessed our power. Your crude vessels are no match for our artistry." Stone's expression didn't change. "Artistry doesn't stop kinetic rounds, Admiral, but you'll find that out soon enough." The transmission ended, leaving Zayeth staring at a blank screen. The human had simply hung up on him. No negotiation, no plea for mercy, no recognition of Caltharian superiority. Just a calm statement of fact delivered with the same tone one might use to discuss the weather. Sir Vesic reported nervously, "The human ships are moving into attack formation." Zayeth studied the tactical display. The human vessels had abandoned any pretense of elegant maneuvering. They simply formed a rough line and began accelerating toward the Caltharian fleet. No artistry, no style, just direct aggression. "They're barbarians," he muttered. "They have no understanding of civilized warfare." But as he watched the ugly human ships bearing down on his beautiful fleet, Admiral Zayeth Kryn felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Doubt. The humans weren't following any of the established rules of civilized combat. They weren't trying to match Caltharian elegance or engage in ritualistic displays of power. They were just coming straight at him with obvious intent to kill, and somehow that was more terrifying than any elaborate battle formation he had ever faced. When art meets war, Admiral Marcus Stone stood on the bridge of the UHMS Thunderhawk, watching the alien ships maintain their perfect formations. His crew moved with practiced efficiency around him, running final systems checks and preparing for what promised to be humanity's first major space battle against an alien empire. "Tactical analysis, Commander Hayes," he ordered. Commander Lisa Hayes, his weapons officer, pulled up detailed scans on the main display. "Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than ours, Admiral. Energy shields are sophisticated, probably more advanced than anything we've developed. But their formations are purely ceremonial. They're prioritizing appearance over tactical advantage. Weaknesses, they cluster together for visual effect. No overlapping fields of fire, no mutual support patterns. It's like they're more concerned with looking good than covering each other's backs." Stone nodded grimly. Humanity had learned warfare the hard way, through centuries of conflict on Earth and decades of colonial disputes. Every human military doctrine emphasized practicality over pageantry, function over form, results over reputation. "Signal the fleet," he commanded. "All ships, weapons free. Concentrate fire on their lead elements. We go in hard and fast." The human fleet began to spread out, abandoning the tight formation they had maintained during approach. The UHMS led the center group, while destroyers Wolverine and Badger took the flanks. Heavy cruisers, Ironclad and Sledgehammer, provided fire support from the rear. Unlike the flowing artistic movements of the alien ships, the human vessels moved with mechanical precision. Each ship took its assigned position to maximize firepower and minimize mutual interference. It wasn't pretty, but it was deadly effective. Admiral Zayeth watched the human fleet deploy with growing unease. Their formation was crude and inelegant, but it followed sound tactical principles. These humans might be barbarians, but they weren't fools. Sir Vesic reported, "The humans are targeting our lead squadron. They appear to be concentrating their fire rather than engaging in proper distributed combat." This violated every principle of civilized warfare that Zayeth knew. Proper military etiquette demanded that opposing fleets engage in balanced combat, allowing both sides to demonstrate their skill and artistry. Concentrating overwhelming force against a single target was unsporting. "Signaled the fleet," he commanded. "Begin the 7th Symphony formation. We will show these barbarians how true warriors conduct themselves." The Caltharian ships began to move in a complex pattern that had taken decades to perfect. Each vessel followed precisely choreographed movements, creating flowing geometric shapes as they maneuvered. Their beam weapons fired in timed sequences, painting space with streams of colored energy. It was beautiful, it was elegant, it was everything that separated civilized beings from mere animals. And it was exactly what the humans had been waiting for. "All ships, open fire," Admiral Stone commanded. The human response was nothing like what the Calthari expected. There was no artistic display, no ceremonial challenge, no elegant maneuvering. The human ships simply opened up with everything they had. Railguns fired solid tungsten slugs at tremendous velocity. The projectiles were crude compared to Caltharian energy weapons, but they carried enormous kinetic energy. When they struck the aliens' energy shields, physics took over. The first salvo caught the Caltharian flagship Radiant Dawn as it was executing a graceful spiral maneuver. 3 tungsten rounds traveling at 12% of light speed slammed into its shields simultaneously. The energy barriers flared, held for a microsecond, then collapsed under the massive kinetic impact. The slugs punched through the crystalline hull like bullets through glass. The beautiful ship shuddered, its perfect form marred by gaping holes. Atmosphere vented into space in glittering clouds of frozen air. "Impossible," Zayeth gasped. "Their primitive weapons cannot penetrate our defenses." But the humans weren't finished. Missile swarms launched from every ship in the fleet, hundreds of chemical explosive warheads streaking toward the alien formation. The missiles weren't sophisticated, but they didn't need to be. They simply carried large amounts of high explosive and flew very fast. The Caltharian point defense systems, designed to intercept elegant energy beams and guided projectiles, couldn't cope with the sheer volume of incoming fire. Some missiles were destroyed, but dozens more got through. The celestial harmony disappeared in its expanding ball of flame as 6 missiles detonated against its hull. The stellar grace tried to evade, its crystalline form spinning through a beautiful, evasive pattern. But 3 more missiles caught it amidships. The ship broke apart, its pieces tumbling through space like deadly confetti. "Return fire," Zayeth ordered desperately. "All ships, return fire." The surviving Caltharian vessels turned their beam weapons on the human fleet. Streams of coherent energy lanced across space, striking the ugly human ships with precisely aimed shots. The weapons were powerful and accurate, designed to disable rather than destroy, in keeping with civilized rules of engagement. But the human ships didn't stop fighting when they were hit. The energy beams carved deep gouges in their armor plating, but the thick metal absorbed the damage. Redundant systems kept weapons online. Emergency patches sealed hull breaches. The humans had built their ships to take punishment and keep fighting. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer UHNS Wolverine when her ship was hit by 2 Caltharian beam weapons. The energy streams punched through her forward armor and disabled her primary railgun turret. Damage reports flooded in from all over the ship. "Engineering, I need power to the backup systems," she ordered calmly. "Medical, prepare for casualties. All hands, this is not a drill." Her ship shuddered as more energy beams struck home, but she never considered withdrawing. Human military doctrine was simple. You fought until you won or until you died. There was no middle ground. "Secondary weapons online," reported her tactical officer. "Missile tubes ready to fire." "Target their command ship," Santos ordered. "The big golden one in the center. All tubes, continuous fire." The Wolverine launched its entire missile complement at the Caltharian flagship. 24 chemical warheads streaked toward the Celestial Grace. Their simple guidance systems locked onto the largest energy signature in the alien formation. Admiral Zayeth watched the primitive missiles approaching his flagship and felt a mixture of contempt and confusion. The human weapons were crude, inelegant, utterly lacking in sophistication. They flew in simple ballistic arcs with no tactical finesse. But there were so many of them. "Point defense, engage those missiles," he commanded. The Caltharian defense systems activated, sending precise energy beams to intercept the incoming warheads. The beams were perfectly accurate, each one calibrated to disable a single target with minimal energy expenditure. It was elegant, efficient, artistically satisfying. It was also completely inadequate. The humans had simply launched more missiles than the Caltharian systems could handle. For every warhead destroyed, 2 more got through. The Celestial Grace shuddered as explosion after explosion hammered its shields. "Sir, our shields are failing," Vesic reported in panic. "The humans are using overwhelming numbers." "That's not how warfare is conducted," Zayeth protested. "There are rules. There is protocol. You don't simply throw massive amounts of crude ordnance at your opponent." But the humans apparently had never read the rules of civilized warfare. Another wave of missiles struck the flagship, and the shields finally collapsed. Chemical explosives detonated against the crystalline hull, sending cracks racing through the beautiful structure. Across the battlefield, the same scenario was playing out with horrifying consistency. The Caltharian ships, designed for elegant one-on-one duels and artistic displays of power, were being systematically destroyed by human tactics that prioritized raw firepower over finesse. The UHNS Sledgehammer lived up to its name, pounding. The Caltharian cruiser Morning Star with railgun fire until the alien ship's hull cracked like an eggshell. The ironclad methodically destroyed 2 Caltharian destroyers with missile barrages that overwhelmed their defenses through sheer volume. But it was the UHNS Badger that provided the moment that would haunt Caltharian nightmares for generations to come. Captain James Kirk's destroyer had taken severe damage from alien beam weapons. His engines were failing, his weapons were mostly offline, and his crew was taking casualties. Any civilized species would have withdrawn or surrendered at that point. The Calthari had specific protocols for such situations, allowing defeated opponents to yield with honor intact. Captain Kirk had different ideas. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed," he announced over the ship's communication system. "Target the alien flagship. We're going to show these pretty boys what a real warship can do." The Badger turned toward the Celestial Grace and accelerated on its failing engines. The human ship had been ugly to begin with, and battle damage had made it even less appealing. Armor plates hung loose, weapon turrets were twisted wreckage, and atmosphere leaked from dozens of hull breaches. But it was still moving, and it was still fighting. Admiral Zayeth stared in disbelief as the damaged human ship bore down on his flagship. The idea of deliberately ramming an opponent was so barbaric, so utterly uncivilized, that he couldn't process what he was seeing. Evasive maneuvers, he ordered desperately. Full power to engines. The celestial grace tried to dodge, its crystalline form moving with desperate grace, but the human ship adjusted course to match, its crude computer systems calculating intercept vectors with mechanical precision. The collision was spectacular. The Badger struck the alien flagship at nearly full velocity, its reinforced prow punching through the crystalline hull like a spear through silk. Both ships disappeared in a expanding fireball that briefly outshone the distant sun. The psychological impact on the surviving Caltharian ships was devastating. They had never seen anything like it. A species that would deliberately destroy their own vessels to ensure enemy destruction was beyond their comprehension. Sir Vesic whispered in horror, "They're all insane. The humans are completely insane." Admiral Zayeth looked around his damaged bridge, seeing the same fear in every face. His beautiful fleet was in ruins. His elegant tactics had proven useless against human brutality. Everything he believed about civilized warfare had been shattered by creatures who fought like rabid animals. "Signal the fleet," he said quietly. "All ships withdraw to hyperspace. Emergency jump protocols." "Sir, we're retreating. We're surviving," Zayeth corrected. "These humans, ... They don't fight wars. They fight extermination campaigns." The surviving Caltharian ships gathered into a ragged formation and jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their once proud fleet. They carried with them a new understanding. Somewhere in the galaxy was a species that cared nothing for the art of war, nothing for elegant tactics or beautiful formations. The humans fought to win, and they would do absolutely anything to achieve victory. Admiral Stone watched the alien ships disappear on his sensors and allowed himself a small smile. Around him, his crew was already assessing damage and casualties, preparing for whatever came next. "Signal from Captain Chen at the mining station, sir," his communications officer reported. "She says, and I quote, 'Thanks for handling the paperwork, Admiral. Now I can get back to work.'" Stone chuckled. Somehow, that seemed to sum up humanity perfectly. They had just fought their first major space battle against an alien empire, and all they wanted to do was get back to work. In the depths of space, the wreckage of elegant alien ships drifted among the stars, while ugly human vessels began the long journey home. The galaxy would never be quite the same. Word of the battle spread quickly through interstellar communication networks. Within weeks, every major species had heard the story. An ancient empire of warrior artists had encountered a young species called humans, and the humans had won through sheer, uncompromising brutality. The message was clear. These humans didn't fight for glory or honor or artistic expression. They fought to protect what was theirs, and they would use any method necessary to achieve victory. It was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.